Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Recovery Playbook, and I have a recovery ambassador for damn sure. His name is Sam Webb. He is the co-founder of LIVIN, which is puts mental health awareness and suicide awareness to the forefront. He has also come all the way from Australia to make his way in Hollywood as an actor. And you certainly can find him on Instagram and other social media as an influencer. And I came to meet this man through a mutual friend, and I just love your mission. I want to welcome you to the podcast. How you doing today, Sam?
Greg, mate, I'm doing good, but it's great to see you. It's been a while since we caught up last, mate, but I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to being on the podcast with you.
Good. This is your second time up here. I just wanted to ask you about our $1 billion set here. The green screen, you like the green screen we have
mate,
here?
it's invaluable. I know why you don't leave this place now. That's why I'm here.
Well, good. So, Sam, most of the time I interview people on the Recovery Playbook around addiction and around alcoholism, but there's other types of recovery out there, and one of them is mental health, and I know that's your focus. And so I just want you to touch and tell my audience about your type of recovery, and really let's just start it off. Like, what was your rock bottom?
It's a great question, and I appreciate you asking me, Greg, and hopefully I can explain it clearly and articulate it as best as I can. My recovery journey, I guess, probably started even prior to 2013. And we'll talk about that year in a very minute. But for me, I mean, I'd left the States at a time in my life where my life started crumbling around me. And as a young guy, thinking I had the answers to everything and looked like I had it all put together, an amazing family, a great, relationship with my friends and my family. And I guess for me, the year leading up to 2013 was bad. I went through my own mental health challenges at the time with anxiety and depression, and I was diagnosed with it, and I wasn't really aware of how bad it got, to a point where I got myself off medication and my life started to literally spiral out of control. And I was using drugs and alcohol in the year of 2013 quite regularly, and I thought I was bulletproof. I really did. I thought I was bulletproof, and I looked really happy from the outside, like a lot of young guys do, because they're too scared to ask for help. And for me, it just wasn't something we'd speak about. I couldn't really articulate it until I was connected with a friend, reconnected with a very close friend, I should say. His name was Dwayne Lally. We grew up together playing football and sports, and everything we tried our hand at, we were very competitive. We'd knock each other around, and we'd compete who'd get the best girls and who'd be the funniest at a party or whatever it was. And we reconnected the year I got back from America in 2012 and 2013, and I remember Dwayne opening up to me very clearly about his struggles with bipolar disorder. And as a friend, I thought I listened as best as I possibly could have, and I didn't know how bad his issues were and his struggles were, because he sort of played it off like, oh, it doesn't matter, I'm all right, I'm fine. We hear this all the time, I'm fine. And it wasn't until a night of September 15 of 2013, a night I'll never forget. I remember Dwayne calling me into his room that night and going, Webby, my last name, mate, I want to talk to you about how serious it got for me in my journey. I tried to take my life twice before, and I was so caught off guard, mate. I had no idea what to say. I thought I listened as best as I could as a friend. I thought I reassured him of all the loving people in his life that would help him if he was ever suicidal again. And I'd never actually been suicidal at that stage of my life, but I remember him going, don't worry, Webb, I'm fine, life's great. I reassured him things are, great. Like, anyone will drop anything for you to make sure you're alive, you're happy, and you're living well, and we'll get back on track and start living a great life again. And he looked at me in the eyes that night, one of the last conversations we had, and he said, don't worry, Sammy, I'm fine. I'm fine. My future looks bright and promising. And he was selling me. And that was the last moment that I had with Dwayne that night. And I didn't realise, after a couple of hours, I went home, and I didn't realise the next time I'd see Dwayne wasn't in living proof. You know, Dwayne had ended up taking his life that night, probably an hour or two after I had that conversation with him. And mate, I still ask myself today, you know, what could I have done? What should I have done differently to ensure that, you know, maybe we don't go through this again with someone else? And yeah, it was a really hard time in my life, but for a lot of people, and it changed my life forever, and it still changes my life today.
So that phone call, was that 8 in the morning, 10 in the morning? Like, give me what you were doing at the exact moment.
Ooh, all right. Well, the phone call wasn't until about 5 o'clock the next day in the afternoon. It was that whole day of trying to focus, but knowing that Dwayne had gone missing. And it was the last thing we'd expected, because after the conversation I had with him to what was going through people's mind, because he's done it before, he's taken off and he hasn't showed up for a couple of days, and man, I didn't expect it to happen. And I remember his face getting shown on social media. Has anyone seen this guy around? We can't find him. The police report was in, and mate, I got the call, and I didn't want to believe what the call was, mate. It was surreal, and I didn't believe it to a point where I had to get in my car that night from getting the call and driving to the hospital. And it was when they pulled back the curtains in a morgue that you realise that this is real, and what you're just experiencing is the real deal. And you know, for me, I felt very responsible for it, because I was one of the last people to have been with him. And you know, we were partying that night. You know, we were even under the influence of drugs, alcohol, and yeah, I mean, it was my fault at that stage in my mind.
So I'm sorry you had to go through that. I can feel the emotion already. Here we are 7-8 years later. And because we work with people around drugs and alcohol, do you feel that had anything to do with his decision that night? And if so, let me and the audience know that. You know, did drugs and alcohol play into Dwayne's decision? Yeah,
I'm a big believer that, you know, with drugs and alcohol, it sort of gives you the balls to do things that you probably wouldn't do.
Fuck yes.
It fucking drops your inhibitions, and you can take on the world. You can jump a gap, or you can leap off this because you're invincible. And for Dwayne, I know Dwayne, he was a strong guy, but you take that out of the picture, drugs and alcohol, it wouldn't have happened.
You know, when I first met you, you told me the story of "I'm fine." Those two words were, I believe, the foundation for your foundation. Can you tell us, our audience, how those two words shaped the building blocks of your foundation and what you guys do with Living?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those last two words were very common for a lot of people. We all say, you know, like, I'm fine, but deep down we don't really know how to articulate it. We don't know what to say as someone that might observe that you're not doing too well. So we brush it off and we try and talk about something else because it's not cool. Dwayne used to always say, "We're living." You know, he always used to say, "We're living, man." Like, you scrolled through all of his old social posts, happiest guy around, very charismatic. He had an amazing, as I said earlier, amazing community, great fiance, his family all well put together. You couldn't fault it from the outside looking in. And he always used to say, "We're living, man, we're living, life's great." It was cool, you know, and he used to do stupid things and say, "We're living, man, we're just living." And that's where the name of Livin' came from. And that was underpinned by everything around mental health and suicide prevention, which is our mantra, and it's my favourite mantra and slogan, which I try and live my life by, which is, "It ain't weak to speak." And that's for anyone out there, it ain't weak to speak about anything, and that really shaped our foundation and everything that we're all about today.
One of the reasons I wanted to bring you on the podcast is the importance of sharing, the importance of putting your hand in the air, you know. And I work with a lot of 12-step groups, a lot of groups in recovery, and I want people to share, because what I figure that happens with sharing is two things. I either share something of happiness and I see a nod and a smile and someone goes, "Oh, I share that joy," or I share something of pain and I see that same nod and I cut my pain in half. And so I love your slogan, "It ain't too weak to speak." How'd you come up with that?
Yeah, that's a good question too, because a lot of people ask, and it was a friend of ours. He's like, "Man, like, Dwayne, he just should have spoke up that night. Like, we all should as young guys. Like, we're used to just sucking it up because we're strong and we're meant to have the answers for everything, but it just ain't weak to speak. He said it, and it's sort of just like, it ain't weak to speak. That's really cool. Yeah. So we just ran with it, and it's just grown. We're very grateful with all the support that we get, but you know, as we're sitting here right now, Gregg, and sharing very serious stuff, there's still people that they're taking their lives, you know, all over the world now, probably more than ever. And it's just about getting out there and making a difference.
So the name of the podcast is The Recovery Playbook. And your recovery is different from my recovery. We both have playbooks that our experiences can help others. Walk me through your early days of your recovery playbook. So like the first 90 days, the first 6 months. That's question number one. Question number two is, has anything changed in your recovery playbook today?
I love those questions.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think it's important because everyone's journey is very different. You know, mine will be very different to yours. I can tell you right now, the 90 days post Dwayne's death was not recovery for me. It was spiraling. I was suicidal. I was at the darkest of my life. Just hands down, drinking alcohol, doing drugs. It wasn't living at all. And it took a couple of other people in my life that had took their own life, and man, I needed to make a difference or a change, because if I hadn't have done it or taken the initiative, I was definitely going to be in the same spot that Dwayne was in. There was no doubt about it. And I guess post I would probably say it was 6 months, you know, 6 months after Dwayne passed. Trying to keep busy with starting the foundation. We're starting LIVIN with my co-founder Casey. We were trying to keep so busy with just making a difference to quieten out all that noise, that head chatter that was just like, you're guilty, it's your fault, like you should have been able to listen.
What could I have done different?
What could I have done differently? And you're like, you know, why didn't I see the warning signs that night? And mate, I look back on it now, and it wasn't helpful, obviously, but that was just a state of mind I was in. And it took, as I said, a couple of people who'd also passed post-Dwayne, my own, just knowing how deep in the shit I was myself. My life was going nowhere. I realised I had to actually do something differently. And, you know, and I thank Dwayne in a big part of me being here, because for me to see the impact that a close friend's life had on so many people was, unquantifiable. I couldn't explain it. I saw it in my own two eyes. I saw the impact it had and the after effects that it still has today. So I wanted to sort of put my hand up and admit my own challenges. We talk about it ain't weak to speak, and it was time to, instead of going against the grain, I started to go with the grain and start calling out my flaws and my weaknesses and my challenges, and it really served me very well in my life. You know, I owned up the things that I hid in the closet for many years, and I got to articulate things I never thought I'd be able to articulate in my entire life, in my entire being. And along that journey, especially the 6 to 12 months, you know, I saved other people's lives. I saw it firsthand. Like, man, if you didn't reach out and ask for help, or if you didn't share that story, I wouldn't be here either. And I was like, I just got to keep doing this. This is what keeps me living, you know?
What books have you read that have helped you in your recovery? What books have been life lessons for you? Maybe you share some of those titles with our audience.
It's a good question, because I like to read kind of a lot of different things just to learn, because I love learning. But I think for me in my journey, one of the good books probably I've read recently, can I talk about recently?
For sure, yeah.
Is probably a book called, and I got referred to it off a friend, called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. And what I like most about that is because it really, you're having an interview with the other side of your voice, or the negative part of your being.
The dark side.
The dark side saying you're not good enough, you're never going to make it, all this negative stuff. And you're actually, the book's about you interviewing that part of yourself as two different people and trying to overcome that negative part of your existence, because generally speaking, human beings are pretty negative, right? We're not naturally wired to be super upbeat and positive all the time.
What's crazy, Sam, is we're not born that way.
No.
You look at any 2-year-old or 3-year-old, they're happy, joyous,
Exactly.
and free, and there's no racism, there's no judgment, and all of a sudden, along the path, something happens to us. We become negative. Yeah.
And it's, mate, I like to grab little pieces of wisdom from books, people like yourself, and I just plug and play that in my own life and use it in certain parts of my life and my journey. And I'm always on a journey. We're all on a journey, man.
Great. Napoleon Hill's great.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, and
great.
a lot of clinical people will talk, it's our shadow self. They always refer it to a shadow self. How about, look, you are successful. You're here in America. You're going after this career in Hollywood. You have this great foundation. You have this beautiful girlfriend over here.
Very lucky.
Very, very lucky. But also, you put in the work. And I know that success does not happen without routine. Can you tell me what your routine is? And maybe I can borrow some things, and maybe the audience can borrow some things. What's your daily routine?
Yeah, it's another great one. I mean, routine's a big part of my life, Greg, just for a number of reasons, so I can stay accountable to myself, and I know that I've achieved certain things during the day, and that they become non-negotiables for me. First things first, and my better half, Nadia, will probably attest to this. If I don't get at least 8 hours of sleep, I'm no good. I'm in a mood, I'm not as upbeat and energetic. Sleep for me is a non-negotiable. I have to sleep. Diet has become a big part of my life. I never used to take diet too seriously. It was sort of eating what I wanted, looking at my body. If I wasn't putting on weight, great, just keep eating chocolate, whatever it was. These days, I only eat fish and chicken. I was pescatarian for a couple of years, but now recently gone back onto chicken, and it's working for me fine. And self-care. A big part, and one I want to shed a lot of light on this podcast, mate, is about self-care, because I was spending so long looking after other people post Dwayne's death. I wasn't looking after myself, and I had to rain check myself. So I was sort of like putting myself on the back burner, like, you'll be right, we'll figure you out later, but let's figure these people out first. I started to realise I wasn't any good to anyone else because I wasn't taking good care of me. So I've put that as almost at the top of my to-do list, is practice self-care. So self-care is become number one care for me, and that means whether it's going for a walk, taking a 40-minute run, or going to the gym, or a boxing session like I did this morning, out in a car park full of other people. I mean, mate, it's what rows my boat. It's what works for me. But you don't have to be a massive long-distance runner or a sprinter or a weightlifter to get the same benefits from exercise.
And what is the benefits? What are the benefits?
Natural endorphins, that good, those good feelings of endorphins going around your body. You feel good about yourself. You're energized for the day. There's a lot of science behind exercise and moving in general.
We're in a new year, and people have New Year's resolutions, and I have two clients who they want to get in the gym. We're 20 days into this year, they haven't gotten in the gym. What would you tell somebody to motivate them to get them into the gym? Because I know once they get going, they'll get up and running and get back to that healthy self. But right now they just can't. They're kind of confining in me like they're stuck. What would you tell somebody who's stuck?
Yeah, stuck is a hard one, because you might feel stuck, but are you actually stuck? I think it's a perception thing. I'm a big believer that it starts really small. Don't try and look at the end result, what it looks like at the end, and how much you need to commit. Start with baby steps, like really simple things, just moving in the right forward direction, and tick them off your list as an accomplishment. That will help empower you so that you can do more things, and you can rock up to the gym when the gyms are back open, of course, or you might have a gym open depending on what state and you're listening to this right now. But here in California, we don't have any gyms open inside. But saying that, I mean, just little baby steps, man. Going for a walk, keeping yourself accountable, making a promise to yourself that this is what you're going to do today, and you're going to stay accountable to it.
Now, Sam, you mentioned your beautiful partner, Nadia. Mm-hmm. She seems like a perfect workout partner. Yeah. How does someone find a good, solid workout partner? Because I do believe having a partner upholds that accountability you talk about. What do you think what is the secret of getting a good workout partner?
Yeah. See, again, I'm very lucky. I'm blessed. I've got an amazing girlfriend in Nadia, and I think it's just about. Look, let's talk about not having a partner, because I believe you can do it on your own if you really have to.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, it's about being clear with yourself, what you really want to achieve, and not putting so much pressure on yourself to be the biggest and the best overnight, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment. Just do small things first. As I said, baby steps. If it's this week, just doing one walk, and that walk consists of 10 minutes, that's 10 minutes you've done this week that you didn't do last week. And the next week, just keep building on that. I'm going to do 2 10-minute walks, or maybe one 15. Okay, walking is still moving as long as you're going in the right direction. If you're lucky and you've got a great partner or a friend or someone you can connect with, depending on that relationship, make each other accountable to each other. Like, I've got to be accountable to you, Greg, and if I don't show up at the gym in the morning or in the car park to train, like, I owe you whatever it is, or you have to buy lunch tomorrow if you're not there. Like little fun things like that can keep people engaged.
We have 3 words that we use with every one of our guests, and I think they're central to recovery. The first word is shame. What is shame to you? How do you get through it? Maybe give an example of you being stuck in it. What is shame?
Yeah, I think shame to me, the way I look at it is probably not wanting to accept something because it's perceived as something else. Where you this might sound complicated, sorry if it does, but it's almost like where your inner self is at a constant battle with this self on the outside, and you don't want to share something because you're worried of the repercussions, especially for mental health. For me, it was hard for me to actually share really how I was feeling. Like, I would sort of sugarcoat it for the most part because of that shame, feeling not good enough and less than and weak. That's shame. So when I started to embrace my weaknesses and embrace my flaws and embraced my challenges fully and committed to them fully, I wiped out that shame because I was vulnerable. And when you're vulnerable, that's where the power is to overcome the shame. It's like it just draws it straight out.
Brene Brown.
I know, says the same thing, man.
Yep.
Like,
vulnerability is our superpower.
Exactly, it really is. Yeah. And you feel it. Like, you feel the weight going off your shoulders. You actually feel it. It's cool.
Awesome. So the second word is resentment. How does resentment show up for you? How do you get rid of it? What are some tools to work through it?
I think how to work through it is becoming, and again, this is still a work in progress for me, and just being at peace with yourself for who you are and where you are in this particular time in your life. And, what's ever happened in the past, you can't go back and change it. But what you can do is you can change what you're doing right now and the perspective and everything that you have on yourself and the world. And a big part of my recovery was definitely around that stage, trying to rewire my brain about how I thought about myself and other people, and not try and focus too much about what I might have done in the past, because there was a lot of things in the past that I'm not proud of, and things I probably would have loved to have done differently. But I can't change that now. I'm just who I am, and I'm just growing every day.
Last word that kind of goes with both of them is forgiveness. What is forgiveness, and how would you help somebody get to forgiveness?
Yeah, that's a really hard one, because I think forgiveness is something it's almost like letting go, and letting go is hard. You got to be probably at peace and forgiving. If we're talking about forgiving ourselves, are we?
Ourselves or others?
Yeah, I think. Well, I've never had to worry too much about anyone else, because I just generally, if there's an issue, it's on me.
Okay.
So for me, forgiving myself is probably just, again, coming to terms and looking at what's happened in a positive perspective or a positive way that doesn't inflict a wound on my life moving forward, So, and again, it's probably about just finding whatever that peace is for you at a place where you can accept that for what it truly is, rather than beating around the bush and not being really clear about it and using excuses to cover it up,
So I don't usually ask this question, but do you have a higher power? Do you have a God? What is he called? What is she called? And how do you use that on a daily basis?
Yeah, well, I've been very lucky, over the last couple of years since I met Nard. She introduced me to my higher power, which I'm trying to get a better relationship with every day with Jesus, with the Lord God himself. And we read the Bible every day, man. I mean, every morning we read one page out of the daily Bible, and it's been great. A lot of it is making sense, and I'm learning and I'm growing, and I'm trying to put my anxieties, which I still have, and my unsettlements in someone higher and greater than me, and that's what I'm trying to get better at. And I do believe that I can get there. It's just going to take time and commitment, and I'm very grateful that I'm on this path and on this journey, because I wouldn't want it any other way. You got to go through the challenges to be able to get the real version of yourself.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. And the sooner we get there, the better off we are. You know, it's taken me a few decades to really know who I am. So here at Startup Recovery, we coach in 4 lanes: recovery, career, passion, and legacy. Recovery, career, passion, and legacy. I want to touch on a couple of things with you. How important is someone's passion or purpose?
It is. I think it is very important, but it's also, I almost sometimes want to sometimes when you hear people like, why don't you just follow your purpose or follow your passion? Unfortunately, we're not all the same. Everyone's very different. So for some people, finding that calling or that purpose or that passion can be a lifelong journey. For me, I had to go through something really, really fucked up in myself and someone else and people around me to find something I'm genuinely passionate about, and I could do it for the rest of my life. It's a purposeful initiative. So for me, I think it's if I'm talking within the context of finding purpose and passion, I think you've just got to step outside your comfort zone. I think you've got to put it out there, not always wait for those changing events in your life, the bad, the negativity, or the change moments like losing a loved one or something happening in your life to then find your purpose. I think if you can be proactive about it and try new things, step out of what you normally do, meet new friendships, meet new people at work, whether it's trying a new sport or whether it's going to a different gym. Doing all this and stepping out of your normal routine is where you find things you genuinely love and you want to learn more about. That's what I've always found in my life, and I'm a big believer in that. And for anyone that's listening right now, if someone's like, well, why don't you just follow your passion or your purpose, just tell them to beat it, because you're on your own journey, and I think it's important to just follow your own path.
Good. That's really good. So the other word I want to touch on is legacy. I have an opinion that we're on this planet 80, 90 years. There are days that we celebrate, the day we're born, the day we get married, at the birth of our first child. But I think that the most important day in your life is the day they put you in the ground. Because someone's going to grab a podium and go, Sam did this. What do you want this to be when it comes to legacy?
Yeah, I think for me it's probably just, it'd be pretty simple. I just want people to know that, firstly I wanted to create LIVIN to outlive myself and everyone else, to save as many lives as possible, and in Dwayne's legacy, obviously, which will essentially, hopefully, be part of our legacy. Myself, Casey included. I want to know that when my time's up, I've made a difference in someone's life, and for the better, and they've grown and they've become better, and their lives have been more nourishing and fulfilling because of me. So that's the overarching plan.
Cool. Good.
Never been asked that sort of question, though, so that's a good one.
Yeah, it's I think about it all the time. What I hope is that whatever my legacy is, and really I have 3 parts. I've written a book in my 20s that will be on shelves forever. I have 2 beautiful daughters who will outlive me and have kids and go on to do great things. And then also I have Startup Recovery, just like you have Living. So Jeff Van and Patricia Myers and me have this legacy of, guess what? If this guy gets sober and goes back to his wife and his kids and is able to build out, and now I've helped his legacy, that's my legacy. And so we're very aligned in terms of, like, when we're long gone, we hope that Living and Startup Recovery live long beyond us in terms of the work we do.
You guys are doing great work, man.
Thank you. And so at the end of the podcast, I do these really quick questions, okay? Rapid fire. What is your favorite slogan?
It ain't weak to speak.
Bingo. Bravo. What is your least favorite slogan?
Rapid fire, it's out of your control. It's not really my worst. That's actually one of my better ones, because I've got to, I don't even know. Can we pass that one?
Okay, so how about this? What has been your aha moment in recovery?
Seeing someone else recover.
Yeah, the light go on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's magical.
Yeah.
Yep. What turns you off in recovery?
Turns me off? Well, it doesn't turn me off, but the stigma turns me off, like things. I just want to, it needs to be done you need to let go of the stigma. The stigma turns a lot of people off recovery.
Yeah.
So I want to just stamp out the stigma. I want to get rid of it. And that's what living's all about, man.
Amen. What fear do you have currently in your life?
Fear of, probably fear, mate, at the very moment, I'd say fear of losing control.
Okay.
Yeah, fear of losing control.
Is that because COVID?
I think it's exacerbated because of COVID, yeah, for sure. And just sort of just trying to find my safe space. Not that I'm worried about losing control, it's just that it feels like it got very out of control last year. Anything was possible in my mindset, you know?
So you touched about last year. What happened last year that was
Just a
a
tough
struggle for you?
Yeah, real struggle. Just with being in a different country, trying to maneuver around, trying to working remotely by myself. My team's in Australia. I'm by myself out here, so I'm very, very isolated, which number one isn't that healthy for any human being because we're meant to be connected. Wasn't able to connect and meet new friends because of the restrictions, and I was new in LA at the time, so I couldn't go to acting classes, I couldn't go meet new people, all that stuff. It just sort of, and the fear, getting COVID, I got COVID and all that stuff, and the fear and the fear in the world, like listening to the news, everything just sort of like got to a point where I just had to like change, and it was good for me because I've started this year off so strong, my mindset's better, I know where I'm heading, I know where I'm going and why I'm going there, and I'm grateful because of last year, but it was a real slog, you know?
It sounded like you had to push the reset button.
It did. It definitely pushed the reset button. Yeah.
Well, you work out all the time. You only grow through pain.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like you and I can go to the gym.
No
we can look at the
pain, no
weights.
gain, man.
Yeah.
No pain, no gain.
There's another slogan you like. Yeah, no
That's
pain,
another
no
quote I
gain.
like.
Okay, good. How would you define success?
I define success by being happy, by being at peace with yourself.
One of my mentors in business, he defines success as happy children. Now I know one day you're going to have children. You'll know the power of that. But I agree. My children are happy. I win. What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Lifeguard.
Well, you play one on TV.
I could.
Right? Hey, that'd be irony. You call me, hey, I got a role playing the lifeguard.
I'll say that again. The president.
The president. Okay, the president. Good.
Yeah.
What profession would not in your life ever want to try?
I never want to try being a removalist.
A removalist.
Someone that moves people's homes.
Okay.
And stuff.
You're not much of a mover.
Nah, man,
Okay.
I hate moving.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. My last question, Sam. Sure. You get to heaven. Jesus is there. God is there. They're saying, "Hey, come on in." What's the big man upstairs going to say to you?
Mate, you should be proud of yourself. You've had an amazing time, but you've changed the world for better. Yeah, I want that.
Awesome. I agree.
Mate,
Thank you. Thank you
Thanks
so
very
much. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It's always a pleasure
You're the
catching up,
real
man.
deal, Sam. And I see that both on social media and now more so that I got to spend time with you. So that's another episode of the Recovery Playbook. My guest is Sam Webb. Where can they find you, Sam? Look in that camera and tell them where they can find you.
Mate, you guys can find me on socials, as Gregg said, at Sam Webb on Instagram, or you can follow our beautiful charity at LIVIN, LIVIN.org, O-R-G. Website's there with all the socials and whatnot.
Okay. We'll see you next time. This is another episode of the Recovery Playbook. Thank you.